maybe that was an accident. But then when the second plane hit, that's when the realization came in that, no, this is a terrorist attack. So, I always remember that day. I remember the phone call, then the newspapers, covers of the newspapers, the NFL stopped for a week. I mean, it was just the whole world had to stop and recollect themselves and get going. It's very, and again, that always so surreal. I'll always remember that.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Hi everyone, it's Lisa. I think most people here know, but if you don't, I'm from Staten Island, and a lot of first responders and people that aid in the relief of 9/11 are from Staten Island. And so I lost a lot of people in my life that day, and also watched my family go through and everything. My sister's a school teacher in public schools. My brother-in-law is a firefighter in Brooklyn, and my dad is retired from the Staten Island Ferry. And so, for him, this is a big anniversary. And because, as he's getting older, I think it's really important, and this is just my take, for people that they were really a part of it, especially those that responded, that were there, that aided in the relief, to just, if you know of anyone like that, to really let them tell their story, right? Because why we say 9/11, never forget, it's so important to continue to hear those stories so that we don't forget and that we pass it on. And so I know I have a long weekend ahead of me, just talking to family, because again, people just want to talk and tell their stories, and we've heard them 20, 30 times over now, but it's just really important because that's part of how we don't forget and how we pass it on.
Because I worked on Staten Island, a, a lot of police and firefighters for all of New York City live on Staten Island. So that little island took a hit unlike any other area. Obviously, the World Trade Center was in Manhattan, but so many people whose lives were affected were from Staten Island, and it was quite something. Other thoughts?
I just wanted to share my story that my husband lived in Staten Island at the time and was actually in the World Trade Center area, and he saw firsthand the devastation of seeing people literally jumping from the buildings to try and save themselves, and taking that long walk back home on the Verrazano Bridge. And he went to school for aviation, and he was from another country. And indirectly, this led us to meet each other, because after 9/11, he could no longer study aviation due to the terrorist act. And so we were able to meet. And so I always say that 9/11 is the tragedy that brought us together. We would have never met if it wasn't for 9/11.
I remember seeing people who had crossed the Verrazano Bridge, who they made it from Manhattan to Brooklyn to Staten Island, covered in dirt, dust, and in shock.
20 years ago, I was living in the Washington, D.C. area, in Maryland, actually. And that morning I had just dropped my children off. They were 9 and 7 at the time. And I dropped them off at school. My husband was sitting on an airplane at the Ronald Reagan Airport, about to take off on a business trip. And I heard on the radio about the first plane. And like so many of us, we thought it was just a terrible accident. And so when I got home, then we heard what it really was. And my husband called me on the phone to say that they'd shut the airports down, of course, and he was, stuck and going to try to find a rental car to get home if he could. But he told me, go back to the school, pick up the kids. But then he said something that really scared me. He said, take the dog. We had a German Shepherd dog. And when he said that, I was like, why? I mean, because am I going to need protection, or am I not going to be able to get home again? you know, after I got the kids. So that's when it really hit me. Not so much later when we had fighter jets flying over the house. But then when I got back to the school, the woman, the head administrator person whose desk you passed when you went into the school, the look on her face was just heartbreaking. She was on the phone trying to get hold of her son who works in the Pentagon. And of course, the Pentagon was hit as well. So although I personally didn't lose anyone, my husband eventually got home. It took a while. Those I think were the two moments when it really hit home for me.
Thanks, Judy.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, we're having trouble with internet here on the Asheville campus, so the rest of the campus is actually online watching this. It's listed under Bob Bolivar. Most of us are gathered in the back in the student area. I wanted to share my experience with the day after and the week after 9/11. First of all, the thing that hit me the most was the silence. The silence was deafening. All planes were grounded to the closest airport that they were at or near when the government grounded all air traffic. And the silence was just amazing. And then people came out of their homes to talk to their neighbors. And nobody cared about race, gender. Everybody was equal. And the other thing that was amazing was over the next week or so, when everybody was stuck at airports throughout the United States and Canada, you know, people that were planning on being home that night had no money, nothing but dirty clothes, no place to sleep. And people that lived within an hour or two of the airports would actually drive into the airport, pick up complete strangers, bring them back home, feed them, let them do laundry, let them take showers. The outpouring of support for your fellow human being was just something that we've not seen since. And that really meant a lot to me. And looking back at the horror of the day, it was the beauty of the days after. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Paul.
This is Lynn Moore. I can recall my wife was going to work and I was here at home at that 8:45 when the first plane went in. Then I also realized now that I'm sitting primarily in the same spot. I'm home again 20 years later in the same spot. And a lot has transpired over those 20 years. And also on that day, one of the members of our church was talking to her son. He called her from one of the floors in the tower, and he died. And Todd Hill from Framingham, and both of the parents actually have passed. And we're saying it was probably because of a broken heart. They really after their death seemed like they was never the same, and it's impacted them and also our community. I actually recall going. We had a service at our church for the young man, and that's all the young people that he went to high school with in Framingham was there. And I don't think I ever seen a funeral with so many young people with the questionable look on their face, like what's going on. And all that we could do was be together at that point, and what you call compassionate presence. So that brings back that memory to me.
Paul Bresnik's statement a moment ago just reminded me of the silence in those days after. Everybody was muted. Nobody raised their voice. People were supporting each other in ways that I hadn't seen. People were just gentler with each other in those, for a couple of weeks anyway.
And I just want to add, I was in the property management field, managing buildings. And we didn't know when the next attack would happen. So, and we managed high rises. So the day of 9/11, we emptied all our buildings in Boston and Worcester, because again, we didn't know what was going to happen that day. But the following days and the following weeks, we all scrambled to put access control systems in, security guards, police, people manning all the buildings. It was just the uncertainty of what was going to happen too was very scary.
A lot of fear. Are there others who'd like to say something? Shall we take a moment of silence just in honor of those who lost their lives on that day and their families? Thank you. I hope that there's something we all gain from being together and learn from the experience individually and as a society. We keep hoping that there's learning and growth. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you all for all the work you're doing to get the first week of school happening. A lot of work to everybody. Let's hope that next year on this occasion we are together. That would be very nice. All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Stay safe, please.